Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Joy and today I'm going to be taking you on this tutorial. This tutorial is on how to cage a bust, as you can see from the pictures flashing on your screen. So one thing you want to establish is that bust caging is never done on your original fabric. You always bust cage on the lining. So prepping your bustier. You can see I have already ironed on my peplum stay on the area I want to cage. First thing you do is iron your peplum stay like you're seeing on the bust area that you want to cage. Then after that, you can now go ahead to sew the bustier like the normal way you do sew your bustier. So this is just like the initial process of bust cage. The first thing is to iron your stay. If you do this without the peplum stay, it's going to come out wobbly and it's not going to be as sturdy as you expect it to be. So I'm going in to sew my bustier just the normal way you do your sewing, nothing much. You just sew your bustier. Like I mentioned earlier, please don't bust cage on your original fabric. Bust cage is done on the lining and not the original fabric, except you just want the lines to be showing on the outer part of your fabric, then it's fine. But personally, I bust cage on my lining. So this is my lining piece. I've already ironed, pressed open my seams. After sewing, ideally you're supposed to press open your seams. So I've pressed open my seams, and the next thing I'm going to do is to trim off the allowance. This is done in order to reduce bulk. So I'm going to go in, trim off the allowance. You want to trim it off to say 0.25 inches, as tiny as 0.25 inches. The reason is because when you do your bust caging, the bust area always comes out kind of bulky, so you want to try as much as you can to reduce any unnecessary bulk or anything that will add further to the bulkiness of your bust cage. So I'm trimming off my seam allowance to 0.25. So after trimming off, the next thing you want to do is to mark out the areas that would be caged. Mark out the areas that will be caged. You don't want to cage the unnecessary areas. You just want to cage the bust area. So I'm going to go in with my tape. This particular client I'm working with, this particular measurement I'm working with is a very busty client, like a plus size. This bust you're seeing here is 50 inches, so you can imagine how big it is. 50 inches bust. So I'm marking out the area I need for the bust caging. So the first thing I did was to outline the area I need. So the area inside, the part inside is where I'll be caging, while the outer part is the unneeded area. And then at the end of this tutorial, I'm going to tell you what I'll do with it. Just stay till the end. Lest I forget, if you're a new subscriber, you're welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back. Please, if you're a new subscriber, please do consider subscribing as I take you on this journey of easy sewing, easy life, easy sewing. So I've outlined, these are the lines I'll be needing. So one thing you want to understand is that bust cage is just like basket work, or caging is just like basket work. So I've outlined, you can see the horizontal and the vertical lines for my bust cage. The first one you want to do is the outer layer. The first thing I marked is where you want to sew first. And before I did this sewing, I ironed my boning. And mind you, you don't just use any kind of boning. Here I'm using a wrestling bone, and I'm using the smallest size of the wrestling bone, the smallest size available in my area. Actually, I'll put the dimension on the screen. You don't want to use a big wrestling boning. Why? Because it's not malleable enough. Because of the excess curve in bust caging, you need something you can handle easily. So the small boning, the small wrestling boning, is something you can always manage when you are sewing your bust cage or any cage at all. As you can see, I'm just sewing the outer line, the outer part of this wrestling boning. I'm not sewing the inner part. Why? Because when I'm sewing the vertical and the horizontal lines, I'm going to be tucking it into that space. So the first thing you want to do is to sew the outer line, the outer layer of your wrestling bone. So you see, then you cut it like so. You don't want to cut it to be smaller. You cut it like so, and then you tuck it in. So imagine if I had sewn the other part first, the inner layer, I wouldn't be able to tuck it in. So the first thing you do is sew the outer layer, then you tuck it in when you are sewing. Then first, personally, I like going in with the vertical lines first before I sew the horizontal line. And of course, that's the seam line, the bust line. There's going to be a boning there. So here you see me, I'm trying to calculate the exact length of that boning, the exact length I'll be needing. Now what you don't want to do is to make it too small than what you need, or too big. If you make it too small, the implication is that your bone, your cage, after maybe 1 or 2 years, is going to collapse. So we don't want it to collapse. We want it to last as long as possible. That's why you make sure you get the exact length that you need. Try to get the exact length that you need, and make sure it's tucks in perfectly on that outer boning that you used to outline. So here I'm just going to go ahead and sew all my vertical lines. As you can see, make sure you get your exact length. So I'm following the curvature of that breast, and I'm getting my exact length before installing the boning. You also don't want to make it too long, because when you make it too long, it's not going to fit into the line. There's going to be an excess, and then it's going to be so difficult for you to sew. So you don't want to make it too long. One thing I want to establish is that making a bust cage can be quite daunting, especially for beginners. Why? Because I can tell you, my thread cuts, if I was counting, this thread cuts up to 20 times, if not more, because it's strong. You're sewing on a strong surface, and then it can be quite difficult. Like I said, I'm working with a bigger bust, so you can imagine how difficult it was to carry this along while sewing. So what you want to do is just to be careful. You can sew it slowly instead of speeding. You just take it slowly, and before you know it, your bust cage is done. So yeah, I'm just sewing all my vertical lines. Stay with me. So I finished sewing my vertical lines. It's time to sew the horizontal lines. So you're just going to do the same thing. Tuck it into that opening there, into the open parts of that bust, the boning you use in outlining your bust area. You tuck it in, and then you sew. So for this last part, you can see where I'm tucking this boning into is slanty. It's not just a straight curve, it's quite slanty. So what you want to do is you slant the boning that you're going to, the edge of the boning where you're going to tuck it into, you slant it also. The idea is to make sure that it fits perfectly into that space. So you slant it also before sewing. So yeah, you see I've done that, and then I'm sewing it in. When you get to the edge, you want to do the same thing. So when you're done sewing all the inner lines, the vertical and the horizontal lines, the last thing you want to do as patterning your sewing is to seal up. You seal up the other lip of the boning you used for the outer lines. So now you're done tucking all the bonings inside. What you want to do is just seal it up before we go to the next step. So don't forget this step. Make sure you seal up after you're done sewing your inner bonings. You seal up that outer boning first before we go ahead with the next step. So when you're done sewing your boning, you're done with everything concerning sewing, make sure to always trim off the excess threads. Like I said, my thread kept on cutting and cutting, so of course there should be excess threads flying around. This is what the outer part of this lining looks like after bust caging. This is what it looks like. Mind you, before you install it, that's when you're coupling it to your fabric or coupling it together with your fabric, you're going to have to push it out. You push it out first before you go further. And also there's another process called fleshing. You don't just want to bone and install your cloth. You want to flesh before doing that. I'll do that in another tutorial and show you what it looks like. So yeah, as you can see, I'm done with the sewing the caging. The next thing I'm doing is trimming off my excess collar gum or the hard collar gum. I'm just going to trim off this part I don't need. You know, ideally you don't even need a collar gum in your bust area, but because we are doing a bust cage, it's very needed. So yeah, I'm just going to trim off the excess collar gum in the outline. Trim it off. And once you're done, your bust cage is ready. Don't forget to push it out before fleshing. You don't flesh while it's in this curvature, it's in this inward curvature. You push out, because when you're wearing, since you did it on your lining, except your bust caging on your fabric, then you can leave it like so, because then the breast pushes out. But when you're bust caging on your lining, then when you're wearing it, it has to push in from inwards to outwards. So before you flesh, you push it out before fleshing. So here you can see this is a perfect bust cage for a size 50 client. See what it looks like. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials like this. Thank you so much for watching. See you.